The morning sun cast a golden hue over the sandstone walls of the temple, and there, amidst the sacred columns, stood Nefertari Amunras. Her figure was like a slender reed, swaying gently with the rhythm of the chants that filled the air. Dark hair cascaded down her back in luscious waves, each strand weaving shadows that danced upon her shoulders. Those who looked upon her saw the depth of the Nile reflected in her eyes, an arresting shade of obsidian that seemed to hold secrets as ancient as the gods themselves. Nefertari's hands moved with delicate precision, arranging offerings of incense and myrrh before the massive stone effigy of Amun. The air was heavy with the scent, a tangible whisper of devotion that wrapped around the pillars and settled into every crevice of the holy place. She chanted prayers, her voice a soft melody that harmonized with the drone of sistrums, a sound as perpetual as the flow of time itself. Her heart beat in time with her duties. It was a rhythm she knew by rote, as constant as the rise and fall of the sun. Each word of blessing she uttered was a thread in the tapestry of her faith, woven with unwavering loyalty and love for her God. Nefertari felt the weight of her responsibilities settle upon her shoulders like the mantle of the sacred vulture, yet she bore it with grace. "Amun," she whispered, her lips barely parting, "hear me. Bless your children. Guide us through the unknown." Her words were a plea, a drop of hope in the vastness of uncertainty that surrounded their lives. In this hallowed space, she was the conduit between the divine and the mortal, a role she embraced fully, even as it demanded everything from her. As the light shifted, casting long fingers across the temple floor, Nefertari completed her rituals, each act a reaffirmation of her bond to the deity she served. In the silence that followed the morning's litany, she allowed herself a brief moment of introspection, feeling the thrum of life beyond the temple walls, knowing that her path was forever intertwined with the will of Amun. Beyond the temple's sacred stone walls, where the echo of Nefertari's prayers still lingered in the air, the clang and clatter of sword against shield reverberated through the dusty training grounds. Akil Nebtawi was at the heart of this cacophony, his muscular form moving with a grace that belied his imposing build. His dark eyes were fixed on his opponent, as sharp as the blade he wielded. Each strike, each parry, was an exhibition of his exceptional skill, honed over years of relentless practice. Under the scorching sun, beads of sweat trailed down Akil's brow, catching the light like tiny jewels before being flung into the air by another swift movement. General Horemheb stood at the periphery, his gaze as keen as the falcons circling above, missing nothing. The seasoned warrior saw not just the strength of Akil's arm, but the strategic mind guiding each blow, the potential of a leader in the calculated risks he took. "Again!" barked Horemheb, a command that was both a test and a testament to his belief in Akil's abilities. The young soldier's response was immediate, resetting his stance, tightening his grip on the hilt of his wooden sword, his body poised for the next assault. The dance resumed, a symphony of disciplined aggression and controlled defense. When the mock battle ended, Akil stood tall, chest heaving, and met Horemheb's approving nod with a curt nod of his own. He turned to his fellow soldiers, the camaraderie palpable in the shared looks of respect and the claps on the back. They were bound by more than just duty. They were brothers in arms, each one committed to the protection of Thonis-Heracleion and its people. "Drink, brother," one soldier offered, extending a water skin toward Akil. Gratefully, he accepted it, the cool liquid a small mercy against the day's heat. They spoke little, conserving words as they conserved energy, but every gesture, every glance, conveyed volumes. Here, among these men, Akil found a semblance of the connection he sought, a bond forged in the fires of discipline and dedication. As the sun began its slow descent, casting an orange glow across the training ground, Akil wiped the sweat-soaked cloth across his face. Tomorrow would bring another dawn, another day of rigorous training. But for now, He allowed himself a moment of rest, a fleeting respite from the demands of a soldier's life in ancient Egypt. The day broke with the melodic chants of the temple. Nefertari Amun-Ras, her silhouette bathed in the early light, moved with serene grace among the columns of the sacred place. She lit incense, its smoke curling skyward like serpents ascending to the heavens, carrying prayers from her lips to the ears of Amun. The long dark cascade of her hair shimmered with gold dust as she performed the rites, each step measured, each gesture perfected over years of unvarying repetition. Her captivating eyes, pools of devotion, reflected none but the figures of deities surrounding her. She chanted hymns, her voice a soft echo in the vastness of the chamber, and adorned the statues with fresh linens, her hands steady and sure. The predictability of her duties offered comfort, a blanket of certainty in the rituals she had woven into the fabric of her very being. Elsewhere, beyond the sandstone walls of the temple, Akil Nebtawi, his heart pounded a drumbeat of longing, a yearning for something beyond the boundaries of his soldier's life. The clanging of swords was his daily chorus, a harsher melody than the one that floated through the temple halls, where Nefertari glided like a ghost of devotion. As Nefertari traced the ancient words on papyrus, her movements were slow, deliberate. Her life was confined within the lines of scripture, each day a mirror of the last. The ink stained her fingertips, a testament to her diligence and her confinement to the role ordained by her faith. Akil's world, though disciplined, was ever shifting, never still. His body ached from the relentless training, yet it was a sweet pain, one that spoke of strength and survival. While Nefertari's path was set by the unwavering traditions of her ancestors, Akil's was carved anew each day, each moment an opportunity to test himself against the unknown. In the quiet recesses of her heart, Nefertari cherished her service, but the sameness of her existence stretched before her like the endless desert sands. She found solace in her unwavering loyalty, yet somewhere within, the faintest whisper of curiosity rustled. Unseen, like a breeze through the reeds along the Nile, Akil, standing amidst the dust of the training ground, gazed toward the horizon where the sun dipped low. Painting the sky with an artist's final stroke, he felt the pull of something greater, a call to explore the depths of his own spirit, to discover what lay beyond the fortifications of his city and the confines of his duty. Their lives, parallel in their steadfastness, diverged in their essence. Nefertari's, a river flowing through a predestined course. Akil's, an ocean, vast and untamed, whispering of distant shores. As dusk falls, Nefertari's incantations slow, her spirit turning inward. She feels the vastness of the temple echo her own depths, the chambers of her soul unexplored and yearning. A sigh parts her lips, not of weariness, but of longing. An unspoken prayer for a glimpse beyond these sacred walls. Akil sheathes his sword, his gaze lingering on the horizon once more. Beneath the emerging stars, he contemplates the night's silent questions, his heart beating a staccato rhythm against the stillness. What lies beyond duty, beyond war? In the quiet hour before the rise of the new day, Nefertari and Akil tread their separate paths, their hearts echoing a similar cadence. A beat that speaks of dreams left dreaming and lives poised on the brink of the unknown. The first light of dawn bathes the temple in a gentle warmth, gilding the sandstone walls with hues of gold and amber. Nefertari, her silhouette slender against the towering pillars, moves with a grace that belies the early hour. She glides through the sacred space, her long dark hair trailing behind her like a shadowy river. Her eyes, pools of liquid obsidian, capture the nascent light, reflecting a devotion that never wanes. Great Amun, she whispers, guide us with your wisdom. Her fingers touch the cool stone of the altar, arranging offerings of myrrh and incense that will carry her prayers to the heavens. In the temple, the scent of incense grows stronger, as Nefertari continues her rituals. "Peace be upon you," she intones, her words reaching out to the faithful who come seeking solace. They look upon her with reverence, seeing in her the embodiment of the divine. Yet, within her chest, her heart beats a quiet rhythm of solitude. Her daily duties a shroud that veils her innermost thoughts. As the sun climbs higher, casting its relentless gaze upon the city, Akil's training intensifies. Akil stands out, his stature not merely physical but one of presence, a leader amongst men. Sweet beads on his brow, the heat of the day nothing compared to the fire in his veins. The clashing of swords rings out, a metallic symphony that speaks of readiness and resolve. "Stand firm," he calls to his comrades, his voice carrying over the din. Their response, a chorus of assent, forges a bond that is as much about brotherhood as it is about battle. The hours pass, the relentless cycle of sun and shadow marking the passage of time in Thonis-Heracleion. Nefertari's chants become silent mantras, her thoughts drifting like the river beyond the temple's reach. Akil's movements slow as the day wanes, each breath a testament to the labor of his calling. As twilight approaches, the city settles into a hush, the earlier cacophony fading into quietude. Nefertari extinguishes the last of the incense, the smoke curling upwards in a final, sinuous dance. Akil sheathes his sword, the metal whispering as it finds its home. They are alone, yet bound by the invisible threads of their shared existence, priestess and soldier, guardian of spirit and protector of flesh. In Thonis-Heracleion, their lives unfold, separate yet intertwined. And as night descends, cloaking the city in mystery, Nefertari and Akil retreat into the sanctuaries of their own minds, where dreams weave tales untold, and the quiet longing for something more lingers in the stillness of their hearts. Akil Nebtawi's muscles tense, his form is that of a warrior born, strength and skill embodied in sinew and sweat. Yet within the depths of his keen gaze lies a whisper of restlessness, a yearning for a connection that reaches beyond the camaraderie of his brothers in arms. His disciplined life is a series of well-ordered days, each dawn bringing the promise of perfection in the art of war. But as the sun retreats and leaves the firmament to the celestial dance of constellations, Akil's mind wanders to thoughts of what lies beyond the city's sandstone walls. There is a gentle turbulence in his soul, an echo of something deeper calling to him across the sands of time. In the quiet of the evening, their separate worlds spin on, parallel threads in the loom of the gods. Nefertari, in her sanctified routine, offers up incense and prayer, seeking comfort in the familiar fragrance of myrrh. Akil, beneath a blanket of stars, sharpens his blade and his resolve, yet he cannot sharpen away the soft edge of his dreams. Nefertari Amunras wove through the throngs of revelers, her presence like a white dove gliding amidst a sea of colour. The festival had transformed the city into a living tapestry, vibrant threads of humanity intertwining in celebration. Her white linen clung and fluttered with each step, billowing in the warm breath of the midday breeze. Eyes as deep as the River Nile swept over the crowd, searching, always searching. For what, she could not say. In the square, where the heartbeat of the drums throbbed against the soles of her bare feet, stood Akil Nebtawi. His bronzed skin was a testament to days under the unforgiving sun. He moved in perfect harmony with his brethren, a cohort of soldiers whose spears captured the sunlight, reflecting it back into the world as if they bore fragments of Ra's own glory. Nefertari paused, drawn by the precision of their movements, a counterpoint to the wild abandon that swirled around her. In the midst of the drill, Akil turned, as though the strings of fate pulled his gaze to meet hers. Their eyes locked, a priestess robed in purity, a soldier clad in might, and something unspoken yet ancient stirred between them. For a suspended moment, the festival faded into a mere whisper. the clamour drowned out by the silent language of their shared glance. It was as if time itself acknowledged the gravity of this encounter, allowing a breath for the spark between them to ignite. There was no word for this feeling, no prayer or hymn that could capture the sudden rush of connection. Nefertari felt an inexplicable recognition, as though her soul had whispered a name she had long forgotten. And Akil, ever stoic, allowed a rare flicker of vulnerability to cross his face, acknowledgement of a bond that defied explanation. The world resumed its rhythm, the spell of the moment broken by the surge of the crowd. But the ember of serendipity remained, tucked away within the chambers of their hearts. Nefertari slipped through an archway, her heart a drumbeat against the silence of the secluded corner. The revelry became a distant echo behind her as she sought refuge in the shadows, away from the swell of the festival. She turned to find Akil at her side, his presence a solid, comforting reality, in contrast to the ethereal whispers of the city's celebration. "Here we are," she breathed, her voice barely above the murmur of the wind, away from the eyes that watch and the mouths that judge. Akil's gaze held hers, steady and unflinching. "In this quiet, we can speak truths that dare not pass our lips in the light of day." She nodded, the fluttering in her chest easing as she found solace in his understanding. "I am bound by my vows, Akil," Nefertari confessed, her fingers tracing the delicate embroidery of her priestess robes. "Yet within me, there is a longing, a yearning for a love that knows no bounds." Her eyes, pools of vulnerability, searched his face. "A love that might lift me beyond these ancient walls, if only for a heartbeat." "Love," Akil murmured, the word rolling off his tongue like a sacred decree. "It is the force that moves the stars and stirs the Nile. It should not be caged by titles nor stifled by duty." His shoulders, usually squared with the weight of armor and responsibility, seemed to ease. "I stand among my brothers in arms, each day blending into the next, a ceaseless march of orders and drills." His voice grew firm, the timbre resonating with a passion that belied his controlled exterior. "But I crave a connection that goes deeper than the camaraderie of soldiers. I seek a bond that speaks to the soul, one that gives life its true meaning." "Could such a thing exist for us?" Nefertari whispered, hope threading through the undercurrent of her fear. "Perhaps it is our destiny to find out," Akil replied, his hand nearly bridging the gap between them, a gesture laden with promise. Nefertari's gaze fell upon the great obelisk that rose like a finger pointing to the gods, a reminder of the order that governed Thonis-Heracleion. Its shadow stretched across the festival, slicing through the laughter and music, a stark line between the world she knew and the one she longed for. "Such beauty in stone, yet how it looms," she murmured, her voice barely rising above the din of celebration. Akil followed her stare, his brow furrowed. "A monolith to our roles, to the duties prescribed by birthright. It is unforgiving." "Rigid as the caste that binds us," she agreed, turning to face him, her robes brushing against his leather greaves. "Yet here, with you, I feel a breath of freedom, a chance to be just Nefertari." "Freedom," he tasted the word, savoring its rarity. "In your eyes, I am Akil, not the soldier marked by rank and shield. Could we ever truly escape?" Her question hung between them, mingling with the scent of incense that drifted from nearby temples. "Escape?" Akil's lips quirked into a half-smile that did not reach his eyes. "Perhaps not. But within these suffocating walls, we might carve out a space that is ours alone, defying the grasp of those who seek to chain our fates." Nefertari's heart quickened at the resolve in his words. "To love in the shadow of Amun, beneath the watchful eyes of Ankh-Keprur, is to challenge the heavens." Akil's hand clenched into a fist, as if grasping the very courage they would need. "I would face the wrath of 1,000 suns, for but a moment's truth with you." "Then let us be bold," she said, her voice gaining strength. "Let us weave our destiny with threads of audacity, for I cannot, will not, yield to a life devoid of your presence." "Nor I," he vowed, stepping closer, their bodies nearly touching. "We stand on the precipice of the unknown, Nefertari. Together, we must leap." The festival continued to whirl around them, a dance of fate and fortune, oblivious to the silent rebellion taking root in two defiant hearts. Nefertari's gaze held the flickering torchlight, a beacon of their newfound path. "When the moon graces the sky at its zenith," she whispered, her voice a delicate tapestry threaded with hope, "meet me by the banks of the eternal river. There, where papyrus sways and lotus flowers bloom under silvered light, we shall speak again." Akil nodded, his heart a drumbeat echoing her words. "By the cool waters, under the watchful eye of Nut, I will await you," he promised, the anticipation in his tone painting strokes of a future unfettered by the chains of duty. "Promise me," she implored, her eyes wide pools reflecting the depth of her emotion. "Promise me that this is not a mere shadow's dance, a fleeting moment destined to vanish with the dawn." "By my life, Nefertari," Akil vowed, his voice firm yet gentle. "This is but the first step on a journey of 1,000 miles. Together, we will tread a path unseen, unmarked by the footsteps of others." Their silent agreement was a sacred pact, an understanding that reached beyond words. They stood close, so close that their breaths mingled, carrying the weight of their conviction on the warm breeze that caressed their skin. The festival's din faded to a distant murmur as they shared a quiet moment, the world around them dissolving until only they existed. Two souls entwined by a bond stronger than the stone of the pharaoh's monuments. Nefertari's hand lifted, trembling slightly, as if moved by a force beyond her control. It hovered, a breath away from Akil's, their fingers yearning to weave together. Her breath caught, the air between them charged with the electricity of unspoken promises. Akil's gaze never wavered, a steady flame in the gathering twilight. His eyes, dark and fathomless, bore into hers, revealing a story of longing and determination, a tale etched into the very fabric of their beings. "Until then," he murmured, his thumb brushing the air near her fingers. A touch felt in the soul rather than upon the skin. "Until then," she echoed, a whisper lost to the wind. In the space where their hands nearly touched, a silent oath was sealed, an oath of defiance, of courage, and of love, unyielding. As the final note of their encounter stretched into eternity, they each carried away a piece of the other, locked within their hearts as they stepped apart and back into the roles the world demanded they play. The distant clamour of the festival faded as Nefertari retreated into the shadowed alleyways, her heart a drumbeat resonating with newfound purpose. The city's stone walls rose around her like silent sentinels, their cool touch a stark contrast to the warmth of Akil's gaze still smouldering in her memory. She pressed forward, her white robes ghosting behind her in the night, her mind awhirl with visions of a future painted in bold, defiant strokes. Yet for every step she took, the weight of truth bore down upon her shoulders, a truth that whispered of looming trials and tribulations. Priestess and soldier, they were titles steeped in honor and duty, shackles forged from expectations and ancient codes. How could love, tender and wild, hope to bloom in such arid soil? A soft sigh escaped her lips as she paused beneath the boughs of a lonely sycamore tree, its leaves rustling secrets only the wind could hear. In the quiet, Nefertari felt the pulse of the city, the undercurrent of unrest that threaded through the jubilation of the festival. It spoke of change, of power shifting like sands beneath the relentless sun. The stars, those eternal witnesses to mankind's plight, twinkled above, casting their judgment in light and shadow. In their silver gleam, Nefertari saw the reflection of challenges insurmountable. Whispers of war on the horizon, the hiss of political intrigue snaking through the corridors of power, and the unyielding grip of tradition all loomed over her and Akil's nascent bond. Can love truly conquer? She pondered, the question a thorn in her side. Love must, she resolved, though her voice was but a murmur lost to the vastness of the night. As Nefertari turned back to the winding paths that would lead her home, she knew that her steps carried her toward more than the sanctity of the temple. They marched her towards a battlefield where the heart would stand against the might of empires, where each gesture of affection would be an act of rebellion, and where the price of a shared dream could be measured in sacrifice and sorrow. She drew a breath, deep and steadying, as she prepared to face the dawn. For when day broke, so too would the illusion of peace. The earth trembled beneath the soles of their bare feet. Nefertari clutched Akil's arm as another building, its ancient stones crying out in agony, succumbed to an invisible force. Dust plumed into the air, a ghostly spectre against the backdrop of Thonis-Heracleion's once unyielding skyline. "Look, Akil!" Nefertari's voice was a whisper lost amidst the chaos. Her eyes, wide with fear, mirrored the unrest that had taken hold of their city. People scurried like frightened scarabs, their shadows dancing frenziedly on the walls as they vanished around corners and through doorways, disappearing from sight and perhaps from existence. Akil's gaze followed the disarray, his warrior's heart heavy with each crumble and crack of the world he vowed to protect. His hand tightened around Nefertari's, a lifeline amid the turmoil. "This is no natural wrath," he spoke, his words steady despite the pandemonium. They stood at the crossroads, where the divine and the mortal realms seemed to collide, watching helplessly as another home fell, succumbing to the earth's sorrowful sigh. The cries of the displaced echoed, a chorus of despair that hung thickly in the hot, arid air. Could it be? Nefertari hesitated, her voice trailing. She turned to face Akil, her captivating eyes brimming with a tumultuous storm of emotions. Could our love have drawn the ire of the gods? Akil's features, usually the embodiment of resolve, softened in the shadow of her question. He remembered the whispers, the forbidden murmurs that spoke of a soldier and a priestess, entwined by a love that defied divine decree. "It may be," he admitted, the weight of their transgression a heavy shroud upon his broad shoulders. A moment passed between them, silent but for the crease of the crumbling city. It was a silence filled with shared guilt, a realization that their union might have unbalanced the scales of the celestial order. "We cannot let our people suffer for our choices," Nefertari said, her resolve hardening like the clay bricks molded by the hands of their ancestors. Her long dark hair whipped about her face as if in agreement, a defiant banner in the wind. "Then we must find a way to make amends," Akil declared, the determination in his voice masking the uncertainty that gripped his heart. His reputation as a leader, unflinching before enemy lines, now tested by forces beyond his ken. Their hands remained clasped, a symbol of unity against the unraveling tapestry of their world. Together they faced the encroaching dusk, the sun dipping low as if to hide from the anger of the heavens. Nefertari and Akil knew not what path lay before them, only that they must walk it side by side. For the sake of their love, for the survival of Thonis-Heracleion, they would venture into the unknown, where answers whispered in the sands of time awaited those brave enough to seek them. Twilight draped Thonis-Heracleion in a cloak of apprehension, the once vibrant city now hushed as if bracing for a tempest's wrath. Nefertari's heart thrummed with unease while she navigated the narrow, shadowed alleys with Akil at her side. The air was thick with the scent of fear and dust from fallen structures that lay scattered like the bones of the earth. "Here," she murmured, pausing before an unassuming door carved with the symbols of Amun, clandestine amidst the chaos. Akil nodded, the muscle in his jaw flexing with a warrior's readiness. They entered a chamber where time seemed to surrender its relentless march. Walls adorned with hieroglyphs whispered secrets of eternity. At the room's center, shrouded in veils of incense smoke, sat the Oracle of Amun, her eyes piercing the haze like twin beacons. "Oracle, we seek," Nefertari began, her voice faltering before the Oracle's unwavering gaze. "Speak not of what I already know, child of Amun," the Oracle interrupted, her voice as fluid as the Nile, carrying the weight of ages. "The god's ire is upon you." Akil stepped forward, his stance resolute. "Tell us how to quell their anger." The Oracle's lips parted, a slow exhale carrying her words. "A journey awaits, a path obscured by shadows of doubt and fear. You must leave behind the cradle of your love, for only through sacrifice can balance be restored." "Where will this journey lead us?" Nefertari's voice trembled like papyrus in the wind. "Beyond the city of your birth, through deserts of silence and mountains that touch the sky. Seek the old truths, find the hidden light within the darkness," the Oracle replied, her cryptic counsel hanging in the still air. Nefertari exchanged a glance with Akil, her eyes reflecting the turmoil within. They understood the gravity of the Oracle's advice. Abandonment of all they knew and loved, to wander into uncertainty. "Is our love the cause of such suffering?" she asked, a singular tear betraying her stoic facade. "Love is but a single thread in the tapestry of fate," the Oracle said, her gaze softening. "It is not the weaving, but the pattern that calls for correction." With a gesture of finality, the Oracle turned away, leaving the chamber to swallow her words whole. Nefertari felt Akil's calloused hand enclose hers, a silent vow that wherever the journey led, their footsteps would echo together. "Let us go forth," Akil whispered, his voice steady as bedrock, yet carrying the weight of their shared destiny. "For our people, for our love." Under the watchful stars, the city of Thonis-Heracleion faded into the night as Nefertari and Akil stepped beyond its borders, into a world unknown. With each step away from the city, the couple ventured deeper into legend, where their story would be etched in the annals of time, a testament to love's enduring flame amidst the ashes of turmoil. The sun dipped low, casting elongated shadows across the sandstone walls of Thonis-Heracleion. Nefertari's heartbeat in rhythm with the lapping waves as she stood at the temple threshold, her gaze lingering on the sacred chamber one final time. Akil was a silent sentinel beside her, his armor shed in favor of simple traveler's garb. "Are we to be wandering souls then?" Nefertari's voice was a murmur lost in the sighing breeze. "Perhaps," Akil conceded, "but souls with purpose." His hand found hers, their fingers entwining like the lotus stems along the Nile, a gesture of unity against the tide of fate. They stepped through the city's labyrinthine streets, each familiar corner now a ghost of memories best left behind. As dusk fell and the stars began to claim the sky, they reached the dwellings of those dearest to them. Nefertari embraced her fellow priestesses, the women who had become sisters beneath the watchful eyes of the gods. Their whispers were prayers for safe travels, intermingled with the rustling of linen robes. She felt the warmth of their tears, droplets akin to the sacred river's flow, bidding her journey well. "May Ma'at guide you," they intoned, the words a balm to her unsettled spirit. Akil's farewell was a gathering of warriors, stalwart men whose respect he had earned through countless battles. They clasped arms, their grip speaking volumes more than the sparse utterances they exchanged. In their nods, Akil read a soldier's understanding, that some wars were fought not on fields of battle, but within the soul's deepest recesses. "Strength and honor, brother," they said, clapping him on the back with the solemnity of a ritual. "Courage and wisdom," he replied, his farewell an echo of the oaths they shared. Leaving the confines of the city, Nefertari and Akil paused at the grand gates, their silhouettes framed by columns etched with hieroglyphs. The air was cooler now, the desert's breath whispering of lands yet unseen. Hieroglyphs danced across the weathered surfaces, secrets etched in stone. Nefertari traced the symbols, eyes wide with reverence. "Here lies knowledge," Akil murmured, his gaze following her every movement. "Old as the gods themselves." They moved through the ruins, each step a whispered question to the past. The walls spoke of rituals lost to time, of offerings and omens. Nefertari felt the weight of history in her bones, the burden of hope resting on their shoulders. "Look here," she said, drawing Akil's attention to a bas-relief shrouded in shadow. Two figures stood side by side, hands joined, a circle of light around them. "This must be a sign." "Of unity," Akil agreed, his voice low. "Perhaps that is the key." As the day bled into dusk, they pieced together fragments of ancient wisdom, a mosaic of hope. And when night draped the sky in its velvet cloak, they sat amidst the rubble, two souls united against the wrath of heaven, ready to challenge fate for the sake of their city, their love nothing less than a beacon in the encroaching darkness. The desert stretched before them, a vast canvas of shifting sands and relentless sun. Nefertari's scarf fluttered in the hot breeze, a shield against the coarse breath of the wilderness. Beside her, Akil's silhouette was a steadfast presence, his steps deliberate and sure. "Water," he murmured, passing a skin to Nefertari. She took it, her fingers brushing his in a silent thank you, their touch a balm against the harshness of their path. They drank sparingly, conserving the life-giving fluid as if it were liquid gold. Akil watched over Nefertari with an eagle's gaze, ensuring no drop spilled upon the thirsty ground. In these moments, she saw beyond the soldier, into the depths of the man whose heart beat in time with hers. "Remember the pool in the temple garden?" she asked, voice soft as a whisper. "How the lotus blossoms seem to hold the stars within their petals." "Every night," Akil replied, the ghost of a smile gracing his lips. "I see them reflected in your eyes." As they walked, the world around them faded to a backdrop, a stage for the story of their love. They shared memories like sacred texts, each word a verse that fortified their resolve. Their laughter, rare and precious, rose above the silence of the desert, a testament to their bond. Even as their bodies ached and the horizon mocked them with its endless expanse, they pressed onward. The weight of Thonis-Heracleion's plight pressed upon them, a constant reminder of the stakes at hand. Yet, they bore it together, their unity a fortress against despair. At night, they lay under a tapestry of stars, the heavens sprawling above them in indifferent splendor. Nefertari nestled into Akil's embrace, her head resting against his chest. His heartbeat was a steady drum, a promise that pulsed through the cold. "Are we but playthings to the gods?" she wondered aloud, tracing patterns in the sand. "Perhaps," Akil conceded, his voice a low rumble in the darkness. "But even pawns can change the game." In the silence that followed, words unsaid hung between them, a bridge spanning the chasm of uncertainty. And when sleep claimed them, their dreams were woven from the same cloth, visions of redemption for their city, their love, the thread that held it all together. When dawn painted the sky with hues of hope, Nefertari stood, her figure outlined by the rising sun. Akil joined her, his hand finding hers, their fingers interlocking like pieces of a puzzle long forgotten. "Today, we journey on," he declared, his gaze holding the fierce light of determination. "Today," Nefertari echoed, her voice carrying the strength of her conviction. "And every day, until we are but dust and memory." Together they stepped forward, their hearts leading the way. The sun scorched the earth, a relentless eye that observed their every step. Akil's shadow stretched long and lean beside Nefertari's as they traversed the arid expanse, their footprints etched into the sand, only to be erased by an indifferent wind. She squinted against the glare, her dark hair a veil across her back, her skin gilded with sweat and dust. "Look," Akil said, pointing toward the horizon where the mirage of water danced upon the heat. But it was not the illusion that captured his attention. Above it, an eagle circled, its wings slicing the sky with silent grace. "An omen," Nefertari murmured, hope flickering in her depths like the flame of a secret altar. The eagle, a messenger of the gods, soared high above, guiding them with an unseen compass. They followed its path, their steps renewed with purpose. "Amun's eye watches over us," she whispered, feeling the burden on her soul lighten ever so slightly. "Let us pray he sees our hearts as well," Akil replied, his hand squeezing hers, a lifeline amidst the vastness that threatened to swallow them whole. They marched on, the landscape an endless repetition of dunes and desolation. Yet, the world whispered to them through signs, the way a plant stubbornly clung to life among the barren, or how a sudden breeze carried the scent of distant rain. Each small marvel a testament to resilience, a reflection of their own undying will to persevere. As the day waned, they found refuge under the skeletal remains of an acacia tree. Its branches reached out like desperate fingers, clawing for salvation from the merciless heavens. Here, they rested, drawing strength from the shade. "Time slips through our grasp," Nefertari confessed, her voice carrying the weight of urgency. "Thonis-Heracleion suffers while we chase the unknown. Then we must outrun time itself," Akil responded, standing tall, his eyes reflecting the fire of the setting sun. "We cannot falter, not when fear feeds upon our city." In the twilight, a jackal's call echoed across the plain, a lonesome sound that spoke of encroaching darkness. But beneath the haunting cry, there lay a rhythm, a pulse that quickened their breaths and spurred them onward. "Tomorrow, we move at first light," Akil declared, the soldier within him steeling against the coming night. "And we do not stop," Nefertari added, her determination a beacon that would guide them through the looming shadows, "until the gods hear our plea. Or until the stars themselves fall silent." Their resolve was a fortress against time's relentless tide, their love the mortar holding each stone in place. As they settled beneath the watchful gaze of constellations, the promise of dawn loomed on the edge of dreams, a harbinger of trials yet to come. But together, they were more than mere whispers in the wind. They were a shout that would echo through eternity, a call for redemption that would not go unanswered. Dust rose in clouds beneath their determined strides, the horizon ahead a wavering line of heat and hope. Nefertari's limbs ached with the journey, each muscle woven tight with perseverance. Akil moved beside her, his presence a silent vow against the vastness that threatened to swallow them whole. They crested a dune, high as the god's ambition, and paused to survey the land that stretched before them. The ruins of an ancient temple whispered secrets into the wind, its once mighty pillars now but fractured bones of a forgotten skeleton. It was here, amid the echoes of past devotion, that they sought answers that bound their hearts to every stone and prayer uttered within those hallowed walls. "Look," Akil murmured, pointing to where a shard of pottery lay half buried in the sand, its glaze still vibrant against time's relentless claim. Nefertari knelt, her fingers tracing the curve of the fragment, as if it might reveal the mysteries they yearned to unravel. "The crafts of our ancestors," she said, her voice a thread of awe. "Even broken, they endure." "Like us," Akil replied, reaching to help her rise. His touch lingered, a testament to the bond that had deepened with each twilight and dawn they shared. In his eyes, she saw reflected not only her own resolve, but the very fate of Thonis-Heracleion, a city teetering on the brink of memory. They moved through the ruins, each step a silent incantation, willing the stones to speak of redemption, of a way to mend what their love had torn asunder. Shadows clung to the corners of their vision, the day's light retreating before the inevitable night. Still, they pressed on, for surrender was a luxury they could not afford. "Here," Akil said, halting before a bas-relief that bore the image of Amun, god of air and whispers. His hand brushed against the etched lines, following the divine contours as if to draw strength from the stone itself. "Amun sees all," Nefertari whispered, her gaze locked with the deity's sightless eyes. "Perhaps he watches over us even now." "Then let him see our courage," Akil said, stepping back from the wall. "Let him witness the lengths we will go to save our people." Night descended upon them like a shroud, the stars emerging one by one to cast their indifferent glow upon the world of mortals. Nefertari and Akil made camp among the remnants of faith, their bodies weary but spirits unyielding. As they lay side by side, a quiet understanding passed between them, that their love had become more than a mere joining of two souls. It was the thread binding them to a place and its people, an unseen force that could either weave salvation or unravel existence. "Tomorrow we may find our answer," Nefertari said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Or we may find more questions," Akil conceded, his arm encircling her shoulders. "Either way, we face it together," she affirmed, turning to meet his gaze. "Until the end," he vowed, and the certainty in his words was a beacon against the encroaching dark. Their slumber was fitful, dreams tinged with the hues of prophecy and dread. But when morning broke, they rose with the sun, steadfast. With each step they took, Nefertari and Akil grew closer to the truth, their love and sacrifice becoming intertwined with the fate of their city. The sun had begun its slow descent behind the limestone cliffs of Thonis-Heracleion when Nefertari Amunras, her dark hair a stark contrast against the soft linen of her robe, knelt to pack the last of the herbs into her satchel. The air was still warm, heavy with the scent of lotus flowers and the brine of the nearby sea. Beside her, Akil Nebtawi, his soldier's hands steady yet tender, rolled a map of their treacherous journey ahead. "Are we ready?" he murmured, his voice barely above the whispers of the gathered crowd. Nefertari nodded, her captivating eyes scanning the faces of those they were leaving behind. Each gaze held a story, a shared memory, an unspoken prayer for their safe return. She rose, her movements deliberate, as if she bore the weight of their collective hope upon her slender shoulders. "May the gods guide you," one elder spoke, his voice carrying the weight of years spent watching over the city. "May your love light the path through darkness," another offered, her words like a gentle breeze. A young child stepped forward, placing a small, carved amulet into Nefertari's hand. "For protection," the little one said, and Nefertari clutched it close, a silent vow to safeguard their people etched in her heart. Akil reached out, his calloused hand gripping Nefertari's with a strength that belied the tremor in his touch. Together, they turned from the familiar cobbled streets and past the towering statues of deities who seemed to watch their departure with impassive eyes. The jungle loomed at the edge of the city, a vast expanse of green that whispered secrets of the ancient world. As they stepped beneath the canopy, the cacophony of civilization faded into a symphony of nature. The chatter of monkeys high above, the rustle of leaves underfoot, the distant cry of a bird unseen. Humidity wrapped around them like a shroud, the air thick and warm on their skin. Nefertari brushed a strand of hair from her forehead, her gaze fixed on the path that twisted and turned through the heart of the wilderness. Akil moved beside her, his presence a constant echo of strength and resolve, his sword at his side, a silent promise of protection. "Stay close," he instructed, though there was no need. Nefertari would not stray from his side, not when their souls were woven together by a destiny that asked more from them than they might be able to give. They journeyed on, the jungle swallowing their figures whole, their footprints the only trace of two lovers bound for the unknown, carrying with them the hopes of a city and the fragile flame of love in a world that demanded sacrifice. Sunlight filtered through the dense canopy, casting dappled shadows on their path. Sweat trickled down Nefertari's brow as she navigated the undergrowth, her priestess robes catching on thorns and vines. Akil slashed at the foliage with his sword, clearing a way for them to pass. The jungle was relentless, but so were they. Suddenly, the ground gave way to a wide chasm, and the roar of water filled their ears. A river surged before them, wild and untamed, frothing white against the banks. It churned with a ferocity that spoke of the ancient powers still ruling these lands. "Amun, give us strength," Nefertari whispered, watching the water's wrath. Akil surveyed the surroundings, his sharp eyes spotting a potential solution. "Over there!" He pointed to where a fallen tree lay partially submerged, its branches reaching like desperate fingers toward the opposite bank. "We can build from what the earth has offered." Nefertari nodded, and together they set to work. They wove vines into ropes, sturdy and tight, binding limbs of trees to create a precarious but passable bridge. With each movement they synchronized, two hearts beating as one in the struggle for survival, her wisdom complementing his strength, his courage bolstering her resolve. As the final vine was tied, Akil offered his hand to Nefertari. She took it, her grip firm, and they stepped onto their handmade crossing. Wood creaked beneath their weight, the river snarling below as if to challenge their defiance. But step by measured step, they crossed the divide, leaving the embrace of the jungle for another of Egypt's faces. The desert stretched before them, an ocean of sand after the green waves of the jungle. The sun reigned here, unchallenged in the sky, baking the earth to a vast expanse of desolation. Nefertari shaded her eyes, scanning the horizon that shimmered with heat haze. "Water will be our lifeblood here," Akil murmured, checking the skins that hung from his belt. Each drop was precious, a treasure hoarded against the tyranny of thirst. "Then we must be as sparing with it as the gods are with their favors," Nefertari replied, her voice steady despite the dryness that already clawed at her throat. They trudged forward, their feet sinking slightly with every step. Sand filled their shoes, abrasive and omnipresent, a constant reminder of the land's indifference to their plight. Nefertari's thoughts turned inward, to the city they had left behind, to the faces of those they loved. Would they ever see them again? "Look not behind you, Nefertari," Akil said softly, almost as if he could hear her silent lament. "Our duty lies ahead." She glanced at him, his profile carved from the very stone of determination, and felt a surge of gratitude for his presence. Together, they walked into the heart of the desert, the sun a relentless eye upon them, the sands a shifting labyrinth without end. They would endure. They had to, for the sake of Thonis-Heracleion, for the love that bound them, and for the fate that awaited them in the days to come. Sunlight waned, bleeding hues of orange and pink across the horizon. Nefertari's legs ached with each step, her throat parched as though lined with papyrus. When Akil paused, she nearly stumbled into him, her gaze following his outstretched arm. "Water," he whispered, his voice a roughened thread. Before them, fringed by date palms and swathes of greenery, an oasis shimmered like a jewel in the desert's crown. They approached cautiously, half expecting the vision to vanish into hot air. But it held true, a pool of clear blue water cradled by nature's tender hands. "Amun be praised," Nefertari murmured, sinking to her knees at the water's edge. She cupped her hands, drinking deeply, the liquid life coursing through her, reviving wilted spirits. Akil joined her, his relief visible as he submerged his face into the cool embrace. They refilled their skins, the weight of survival lifting ever so slightly with the slosh of water. Around them, the oasis thrummed with vitality. Birds sang, insects buzzed, and for a fleeting moment, they were merely travelers at rest, not bearers of a city's hope. "Rest now," Akil said, his hand finding hers. "We will need our strength." Beneath the whispering palms, they lay side by side. Nefertari's head found the curve of Akil's shoulder, her body molding to his warmth. The desert, with all its cruelty, seemed to hold its breath, granting them this brief reprieve. Their hearts beat in unison, two souls entwined by destiny and duty. With dawn, the mountains loomed, giants against the sky. Their journey resumed, the oasis a memory swallowed by sands. The path grew steeper, more unforgiving, a climb toward the heavens where only the gods dared tread. "Careful," Akil cautioned, as loose rocks skittered down the cliffside. His hand was steady on her back, guiding, supporting. "Always," she replied, her own hand gripping the jagged rock face. Together, they scaled heights that tested sinew and soul. Each ledge conquered whispered of progress, every narrow passageway a test of their resolve. "Look," Nefertari breathed, pausing to behold the view. The desert stretched below them, endless and serene from their perch. It was hard to imagine such beauty could harbor such peril. "Let it remind us why we climb," Akil said, his gaze locked with hers. There was no need for more words. Their shared purpose spoke volumes. They pressed on, muscles burning, sweat trailing paths down their dust-caked skin. The mountain did not yield easily, but neither did they. For Thonis-Heracleion, for the love that bound them, they would scale any height, cross any expanse. And so, foot by foot, hand over hand, Nefertari and Akil ascended. Their journey an ascent not just of rock and earth, but of spirit and heart. The mountain's shadow cloaked them in a chill as the sun dipped below the horizon. Nefertari's breath misted before her, and Akil's eyes scoured the dimming path ahead. Their limbs ached from the climb, but they could not stop. Dusk was dangerous on these slopes. A low hiss slithered through the air, curling around Nefertari's heart with icy tendrils. She halted, a hand raised in warning. Akil mirror-read her, his body taut as a bowstring. "Something watches," she whispered. "Ready yourself," Akil replied, his voice barely audible over the wind that moaned through the crags. Then it emerged, a serpentine horror, scales glistening like obsidian shards under the crescent moon. Its eyes, twin embers of malice, fixed upon them. The beast reared, towering above, its presence a profanation of the sacred silence that had blanketed their ascent. Nefertari's fingers closed around the hilt of her dagger, an offering from the temple, blessed and sharp. Akil brandished his spear, its point a promise of defiance. They stood side by side, two souls bound by more than fate, ready to dance with death. The serpent struck, swift as a thought, but Nefertari's instincts were quicker. She rolled aside, the ground kissing her cheek, and thrust her blade upward. Akil's spear found its mark, driving deep into the creature's flesh. They moved as one, a duet of desperation, each blow an echo of the other's will to survive. The serpent raged, thrashed, its roars shredding the night. But beneath the fury there was fear, for it had met its match in the hearts of those it sought to devour. With a final concerted effort, Nefertari plunged her dagger into the serpent's maw as Akil wrenched his spear free, spilling lifeblood upon the stones. The beast shuddered, its reign of terror ended, its black scales now a mere shadow upon the earth. They did not speak of victory. Their silence held all that needed saying. They ascended once more, hand in hand, leaving the carcass for the mountain to reclaim. At the peak, where the stars seemed close enough to pluck from the velvet sky, a forest awaited, otherworldly, alive with whispers that rustled through leaves older than time. Here, the trees spoke of ages past, their voices a tapestry woven with the threads of eternity. "Trust your heart," Nefertari murmured, stepping into the verdant labyrinth. The magic hung heavy, a fog of ancient power that swirled around them, caressing their skin with ghostly fingers. "Even if it leads us astray?" Akil asked, though he followed without hesitation, his faith in her as unwavering as the stone beneath their feet. "Especially then," she answered, her eyes reflecting the emerald glow that pulsed from within the forest's heart. They navigated by intuition, the world beyond the thicket forgotten. Each turn was a choice, each step a declaration of their resolve. And as they wandered deeper into the enchantment, they discovered that the true path was not one of soil and root, but of spirit and trust, the unspoken bond between two who walked together, through shadow and starlight. A hush fell over the whispering forest as Nefertari and Akil stumbled into a clearing, the sudden silence an omen. Before them stood a creature of myths, a sphinx with the body of a lion and the head of a woman, her gaze piercing through the shadows like twin suns. "Who dares approach the sacred temple?" Her voice was a melody that danced upon the wind, both beautiful and foreboding. Nefertari stepped forward, her resolve a shining beacon in her captivating eyes. "We come seeking the scroll to save Thonis-Heracleion. Many seek, few are worthy." The Sphinx's lips curled into a knowing smile. "Prove your heart's pure, your spirit's brave." Akil felt the weight of their quest pressing upon him, but his hand found Nefertari's, their fingers intertwining like roots of an ancient tree. Together, they faced the Guardian, ready for the trials ahead. "Speak your riddles," Nefertari said, her voice steady as the ground beneath them. "First, show bravery against the unseen enemy," the Sphinx commanded, and the world around them darkened. Shadows twisted, taking form, and phantom adversaries encircled them. Akil's sword cut through the darkness, each swing a testament to his unwavering dedication. Beside him, Nefertari chanted incantations, her words weaving a shield of light around them. "Second, share wisdom that can turn the tide of fate," the Sphinx challenged. "Knowledge is found in the listening, not the speaking," Nefertari replied, her voice soft yet certain. "It is understanding that we cannot command the river, but we can learn its ways and navigate its waters." The Sphinx nodded, the riddle's answer accepted. "Last," she said, "demonstrate love that endures beyond the veil of death." Without a word, Nefertari and Akil stepped closer, their arms wrapping around each other in an embrace that spoke volumes of their shared journey. Their fears faced, their pain shouldered, and their joys multiplied, all because they had one another. "Pass you have," the Sphinx declared, and the forest sighed in reverence as the path to the temple revealed itself. With hearts heavy but spirits unyielded, they walked through the stone archway, leaving the ethereal guardian behind. Inside, the air was cool, a reprieve from the relentless desert's wrath. The walls whispered of ages long gone, and hieroglyphs danced in torchlight. There, upon a pedestal, lay the ancient scroll, its parchment aglow with a golden hue. The moment their fingers brushed the surface, visions of a powerful ritual flooded their minds, words intertwining with their souls. "Two true lovers must be sacrificed," the scroll decreed, its message clear and irrevocable. They exchanged a look, a silent conversation between hearts that beat in unison. In that instant, they understood. This was their destiny, the culmination of all they had endured. "Let it be us," Akil said, his voice barely above a whisper, but as resolute as the mountains they had scaled. "Let it be us," Nefertari echoed, her empathy for her people a beacon that outshone even the darkest of fates. Together, they rolled the scroll, the ritual etched within their very beings. With every step they took towards the altar, they left a piece of themselves behind, a sacrifice for those they loved, a testament to a love that could move the heavens. Nefertari's hands lingered on the scroll, her touch trembling as if to let go would be to sever the very threads of life. Akil stood beside her, his broad shoulders set against the weight of their choice. Tears brimmed in Nefertari's eyes, spilling over like the Nile in flood, carving rivers down her dusky cheeks. Can we truly do this?" she whispered, a quiver in her voice that spoke of her inner turmoil. Akil's gaze found hers, steadfast and sure. "For Thonis-Heracleion, for the future," he replied, his own voice thick with emotion. His calloused hand cupped her cheek, thumb brushing away her sorrow. "For us." In that moment, their embrace was the anchor in the storm of doubt, their arms a sanctuary from the tempest of fate. They clung to each other, two souls entwined by love and bound by duty. Nefertari's heart ached with the knowledge that to save her people meant to lose herself. But within Akil's hold, she found the courage to face the end. "Then let our love be the light that guides our city from darkness," Nefertari breathed out, her resolve hardening like stone. Akil nodded, and together they turned towards the altar where destiny awaited. Each step was heavy, laden with the gravity of their impending sacrifice. Yet, it was not the end that haunted them now. It was what lay before it. The chamber began to shift, walls undulating as if alive. Whispers filled the air, rising to a cacophony of voices that clawed at their minds. Shadows stretched and twisted, forming the shapes of their deepest fears. Nefertari saw her people, faces etched with betrayal, accusing her of leading them to ruin. She saw the love in Akil's eyes, dying like the last ember of a fire. The priestess trembled, her breaths coming in ragged gasps as the visions tormented her. Akil faced his own demons, his failures as a soldier parading before him. He saw himself weak, unable to protect, unworthy of the love he had been granted. A roar built in his chest, a primal sound that broke through the illusion, shattering the shadows. "Look at me," Akil commanded, gripping Nefertari's shoulders. "These are lies, meant to break us. We are stronger than this." Nefertari met his eyes, finding solace in their depth. "Yes," she agreed, her voice growing steadier. "We are the chosen of Amun. Our love is our shield, our bond unbreakable." Together, they faced down the specters of doubt, their love a beacon that no darkness could smother. With each fear dispelled, their spirits soared higher until they stood before the altar, not as individuals fraught with uncertainty, but as one entity, forged in the fires of trial. "Are you ready?" Nefertari asked, though her voice no longer wavered. "Always," Akil replied, his conviction a testament to the warrior he was, the lover he had become. They took their places on the altar, hearts synchronized in the rhythm of sacrifice. Eyes locked, they found eternity in each other's gaze, a promise that even in death, their love would endure. And as they prepared to seal their fates, they knew that whatever awaited beyond the veil, they would face it together, as they had every challenge before, united and unbroken. The sun dipped beneath the horizon, staining the sky with hues of blood and fire as Nefertari and Akil approached the stone altar. Their feet moved in silence over the sand, each step a solemn drumbeat, heralding the end of their journey. The air buzzed with the power of the ancient magic that surrounded them, the ground sacred and heavy with the whispers of 1,000 prayers. Nefertari's hand found Akil's, her fingers entwining with his like vines, wrapping around the steadfast trunk of an ancient sycamore. Their clasped hands were both an anchor and a lifeline, a symbol of unity against the tempest of fate they were about to enter. Her eyes, vast pools of determination, mirrored the stars above, pinpricks of light against an expanse of uncertainty. "Remember our first meeting?" Akil's voice was soft, yet it carried through the stillness, a gentle reminder of life amidst the shadow of death. "You scolded me for my lack of reverence in the temple." A ghost of a smile played on Nefertari's lips, the memory a flickering candle in the encroaching darkness. "You were irreverent," she whispered back, the curve of her mouth deepening just so. "But you learned. From the best." Akil's gaze held hers, the world around them fading until there was only the truth in his words. They stood before the altar, the moment stretching into infinity. Each knew what must be done, yet they lingered at the precipice, savoring the final heartbeat of a destiny shared. They were two souls, bound by purpose and passion, their love a tapestry woven through the fabric of their being. "Let our hearts be weighed," Nefertari declared, her voice rising to meet the challenge of the gods. "And may they prove as light as Mart's feather." As if summoned by her conviction, the air shimmered, and Amun materialized before them. His presence was overwhelming, the weight of divinity pressing down like the heat of the desert sun. He towered, majestic, his ram's head crowned with plumes and gold, eyes aglow with celestial might. "Children of Thonis-Heracleion," his voice boomed, resonating with the very essence of creation. "Your sacrifice has been seen, your valor recognized." Akil and Nefertari, undaunted by the god's grandeur, stood firm, their resolve an unbroken obelisk amidst the sands of time. "Yet," Amun continued, his tone softening, "the love that binds you is rare and precious. It has stirred the depths of my spirit." The couple exchanged a glance, hope mingling with confusion, a silent question passing between them. "Your lives are spared," proclaimed the god. "But let this be known. Defiance bears consequence. Thonis-Heracleion shall return to the embrace of the sea, a testament to the power of the gods and the folly of man." A tremor passed through the ground, the distant roar of water, a harbinger of the city's doom. Nefertari's breath caught, her heart aching for the home she knew would be no more. Yet within the tumult of loss, there was a thread of solace. They had not been forsaken. Their love had bridged the mortal and the divine. "Thank you," Akil intoned, bowing his head in reverence. "We will honor this mercy, and remember." "Go forth," Amun commanded, his form beginning to fade, "and let the tale of your courage echo through the ages." With a final resounding crack, like thunder splitting the heavens, the god disappeared, leaving behind the night and the certainty of dawn's approach. Nefertari and Akil, their fates rewritten, faced the morrow, a canvas upon which to paint their enduring story. The world trembled beneath them, a deep groan from the earth as the city of Thonis-Heracleion surrendered to the sea's insatiable hunger. Nefertari's fingers tightened around a jagged shard of wood, once part of a vibrant market stall where she had bartered for spices and silk. Now, it was a lifeline in the chaos, the only thing keeping her and Akil above the furious swells. "Look at me," Akil urged, his voice barely audible over the roar of collapsing buildings and the cries of a city descending into watery oblivion. His dark eyes, always so full of strength, now shimmered with unspoken pain. She met his gaze, finding an anchor in the storm. The ocean claimed its prize, streets and temples disappearing beneath frothing waves. Nefertari's heart ached for every soul entwined with those stones, every memory now swallowed by time's relentless tide. She could feel the pull of the waters, inviting her to let go, to succumb to the depths with her ancestors. But Akil's hand, calloused and warm, clasped hers with conviction. They were alive, spared by divine whim, two hearts beating amidst the wreckage of a fallen world. The chill of the sea spray against her cheeks reminded Nefertari that this was real, that they had been granted something beyond mere survival, a second chance. "Where do we go from here?" she asked, her voice a thread woven between gusts of wind. Her long, dark hair clung to her face like seaweed, her priestess robes heavy with salt water. "Forward," Akil replied, a simple truth in a complex tapestry of fate. Together. They watched, silent sentinels adrift, as the last remnants of their home succumbed to the abyss. The sky lightened on the horizon, the first shy blush of dawn casting a golden glow on the tragedy before them. It was a new day, untouched and untamed, and with it came the promise of unknown lands and unwritten tales. Nefertari leaned into Akil's embrace, his solid presence a testament to the enduring human spirit. They had faced gods and monsters, climbed mountains and crossed deserts, all for the love that now cradled them amidst loss. As the sun crested the edge of the world, it painted their faces with hope. "Let us build from this sorrow," Nefertari whispered, her words an incantation against despair. "Let our love be the cornerstone of a new beginning." Akil nodded, the lines of his face softening as he looked upon her with reverence. "In the shadow of the gods, we forge our own destiny," he declared, his resolve a beacon as they floated towards the dawning of their next journey. Together, they turned their backs to the sinking city, to the life they knew. Ahead lay the open sea, vast and uncharted, ready to receive their story.